Hello and welcome back to Saxon Math. This is lesson 55, Common Denominators, part 1. When the denominators of two or more fractions are equal, we say that the fractions have common denominators. The fractions 3/5 and 2/5 have common denominators. They both have the 5 as the denominator. The fraction 3/4 and 1/2 do not have common denominators because the denominators 4 and 2 are not equal. Fractions that do not have common denominators can be renamed to form fractions that do have common denominators. Since 2/4 is the same as 1/2, we can rename 1/2 as 2/4. The fraction 3/4 and 2/4 have common denominators. The common denominator is now 4. So this is the same amount, 3/4, and this 1/2 is now just renamed as 2/4. Fractions that have common denominators can be added by counting the number of parts, that is, by adding the numerators. So if you have 3/4 plus 2/4, that will equal 5/4. And you can see it clearly, like if we put this fourth down here and we had it here, now we would have 1 whole and 1/4. So that's 1 and 1/4. 3/4 plus 1/2 is 1 and 1/4. So let's look at this. Subtracting 1/2 and 1/6. So you have 1/6 minus 1, or sorry, 1/2 minus 1/6. So in order to subtract these, we need to have common denominators. So we can rename either one or both of these fractions so that they have equal denominators. So this problem could be written as, looks like to me like we could leave the 6th as the denominator for this one, keep that 1/6, because 1/2 can be renamed to something with the denominator of 6 pretty easily. If you look at it like this, 1/2 equals something with a denominator of 6. You guys have seen this before. So now that you know that 2 times 3 is 6, you know that 1 times 3 would be the numerator. That means this would be 3/6. So 1/2 renamed would be 3/6. And you can do 3/6 minus 1/6 because the denominators are the same. The denominator just stays the same in the answer, and you end up with 2 in the numerator. And now you have to reduce that because this one is divisible by 2. This one's also divisible by 2. That would be 1/3. Okay, so the denominators 2 and 6 just have to be renamed. You could have renamed it like this as well. I hope not to confuse you, but if I have 1/2 minus 1/6, I could rename this as, let's say, for example, I didn't recognize that 2 could be easily converted into 6 by multiplying by 3. I could multiply both of these by each other, so I'd end up with 12 as the denominator in this one, and 6 times that, so that would be this. And then if 12 was the denominator over here, that would have been times 2, and this would be that. So then I'd end up with 6 minus 2 was 4/12. And what's 4 divided by 4? And 12 divided by 4? Well, that equals 1/3. So you see, you still get the same answer if we renamed them with like denominators, and it happened to be a little bit different. Here it was 3/6 minus 1/6 is just renaming the 1/2. If we accidentally or just didn't recognize that we could just rename the 1/2 into 3/6 and we rename them both, we could still end up with the correct answer in the end. But we do not need to rename the 1/6 in this case. we can change halves into sixths by multiplying by 3/3, and then we subtract. So renaming it, like I said before, 3/6. So then it'd be 3/6 minus 1/6, which is 2/6, and reduces it to 1/3. All right, let's try some of those. Letter A, 1/2 minus 3/8. Right, you should have recognized that you can rename this 1/2 into a denominator of 8, and we can leave this 3/8. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to leave that 3/8. This is addition. But I need to recognize that this would be multiplied times 4. So I have to multiply this times 4 up here. So 1 times 4 would be 4. 4 plus 3 makes 7, and the denominator remains 8. So you'd have 7/8. Letter B, 3/8 plus 1/4. So you might recognize that you can leave the 3/8. So I'm just going to put this 3/8 again, and then I'm going to rename this with a denominator of 8 because I noticed I can multiply by 2, and I'm going to end up with 2/8 and 3/8, and I'm going to add those, and I end up with 5/8 as the final answer on this one. Letter C, go ahead and do that one, 3/4 plus 1/8. Again, you might recognize that you can leave this 1/8 here because you can change this 4 into a denominator of 8 pretty easily just by multiplying by 2. So if I multiply by 2 up here, I'd end up with 6/8. And I'm going to add those. So that's 6 plus 1 makes 7. And the denominator stays the same, 8. Letter D, 1/2 minus 1/4. So you might recognize, hopefully, that this stays the same, 1/4. And this would be converted into a denominator of 4 simply by multiplying by 2. And if we multiply the numerator by 2, you'd end up with 2/4. And now you have 2/4 minus 1/4, which equals, in this case, 1/4. And then letter E, 5/8 minus 1/4. So again, you would want to keep this 5/8 just as it is. And then we're going to multiply this one times 2 to make that denominator an 8. And if we multiply the denominator by 2, we have to multiply the numerator by 2. And we'd end up with 2/8. So now we have 5 minus 2, which equals 3. And this would be a denominator of 8. So it'd be 3/8. And letter F, 3/4 minus 3/8. So again, you hopefully recognize the 8, 3/8 will stay the same, but 3/4, we want the denominator to be 8 there, so we'd have to multiply that times 2. This one times 2, you'd end up with 6/8. And if you subtract those, 6 minus 3 is 3, and the denominator just stays the same, 8. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to work out all your written practice problems in class.